Welcome to this episode of Weather with Blake and Heather.
This is the show to learn about all things weather. I'm Blake Harms here with my co-host Heather Bricka.
On this week's episode, we are going to be recapping winter weather across the United States and the earthquake that happened in Alaska just last night. We'll be covering that and much more after the break.
Welcome back. Meteorological winter starts December 1st, but that sure hasn't kept the cold weather away from us thus far. Now, most people think that winter begins at the time of the winter solstice, which is December 21st, if you're going by the astronomical calendar. However, if you consider winter starting December 21st, winter is usually well underway before then. Where we live in the mid-latitudes, we tend to experience freezing temperatures and winter weather way before December. Meteorologists go with the meteorological day of winter for two main reasons. One is because it makes more sense to go with because of the winter weather already happening in December, and secondly, it helps with their climatology records.
During Thanksgiving, some places in the United States experience freezing temperatures, while others experience warm fall-like temperatures. For the Northwest areas, they saw temperatures from 40 degrees and 50 degrees. The East Coast, however, saw blistering temperatures in the low 20s, even in areas like the Rockies, where they experienced waves of heavy snowfall from Utah into Colorado and Wyoming. So Thanksgiving showed very variable temperatures throughout the states depending on where you were able to spend time with your loved ones.
The 92nd edition of the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade kicked off Thursday morning despite record low temperatures in New York City. It was just 20 degrees in Manhattan just before 9 a.m. That breaks the previous record low of 21 degrees. City officials urged spectators to wrap up in layered clothing along with hats, scarves, and gloves. They also said to keep extremities like fingertips, noses, and earlobes covered to prevent frostbite. Wind speeds were high as well, but not quite high enough to ground the balloons. Winds were clocked at 15 to 20 miles per hour with gusts up to 30. Officials will ground the balloons if winds are stronger than 23 miles an hour or there are gusts up to 34 miles an hour. In 2013, high winds forced a balloon onto a street lamp and knocked off part of the top, which injured two bystanders. Police said they will keep an eye on wind speeds throughout the event. If winds become too strong, they will order balloons to be flown at a lower altitude or ground them. But there are still more than 24 floats and thousands of marchers to keep people entertained.
We're going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about how to keep your car safe during the winter weather and how to keep your pets safe during the freezing temperatures.
Stick with us.
What is passion? At Valpo, it's something that pours out of us uncontrollably. It's a late night shot of caffeine, cramming for finals, a jam session with friends. It sees deep into space, turns big stuff into small potatoes, floats boats and floods the senses. Passion is alive, it has a heartbeat, and it lives in you. How do we know? Because at Valpo, passion is who we are.
Welcome back. With winter weather around the corner, we need to know what we need to do in order to survive with cold temperatures. With modern vehicles designed to be able to handle winter weather, there are certain things that every driver must do to be prepared when winter strikes.
And it's so important to get your vehicle ready for winter in advance before that first snowfall hits so that you're prepared.
Yes, that is very true. And what do you do to keep your car
The biggest
safe?
thing I do is ice scraper, which I almost forgot after fall break, and we even needed it before Thanksgiving.
We did.
And a shovel in case me or someone else gets stuck, because I've come across people who are stuck before and it never hurts. But those are the biggest things, and also making sure your windshield wiper fluid is full, because when you get that salt on the windshield, it can get pretty nasty pretty quick.
It can. Also, de-icer spray is really helpful. I
Yes.
always usually have that in the back seat of my car. And even a blanket, just in case it starts getting cold if your car does stop running in the
Especially
middle of
being so
winter.
close to Chicago, you don't think you're going to be one of those people who gets stuck in the traffic jam in the snowstorm until you do. And so it's always good to
Exactly.
have all those supplies ready in the case.
It's very true. Do you have any stories about getting stuck in winter weather?
I've never gotten stuck. I've helped out a few people both here at Valpo and back home who have gotten stuck. That's quite the process, always is. You know, if someone's in the snow, it's gonna take a while. But how about you? Have you been stuck?
I have been stuck, but I've only been stuck about like over 100 feet from my house.
Oh, okay, that's not
So I drove home back from my job and it was like snowing super hard.
Yeah.
And I knew like I just had to get home. Well, accidents always happen closest to home.
Right.
So I just had to run back inside
Yeah.
and grab my shovels, and no one was awake. And then my neighbors came home and had a plow on their ATV and plowed me out.
There you go.
So that
Always
was
good to
pretty
have
great.
neighbors.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, now looking at stories where people weren't so prepared for the winter weather. On November 16th, the East Coast received its first significant snowfall event. New York saw several inches of snow during its morning commute. From the wet snow to wind gusts down many trees on Thursday, and police advised people to stay inside and avoid roads. Commuters were also advised to not use the Port Authority bus terminal because it was overcrowded. By 5:30 p.m., the terminal was entirely blocked up wall to wall with people, and they were urged to take ferries or trains. The problem with diverting those people to take buses as well is that they didn't have chains on them, and they were stuck in the middle of streets, unable to move, and many had to move over to unclog the streets. In St. Louis, they saw up to 8 inches of snow blanketing the city and surrounding areas. Alabama also saw traces of snow, which missed setting their record for earliest snowfall by just 2 weeks.
The new government climate report warns that U.S. should expect worsening weather disasters. The National Climate Assessment came out that says that extreme weather disasters are worsening in the United States. Since 2015, the storm damages amounted to $400 billion with most recent storms. In the western United States, warmer and drier conditions have amounted to intense wildfires and even in interior Alaska. The climate scientist Catherine Hayhoe explained that these weather phenomenons that used to be that weren't going to happen, people say are happening, and it's surreal. The report also said that the intense smoke from the California wildfire poses a huge health risk for future population living there. The air reached levels well into the hazardous range. This article poses that this issue, if greenhouse gases aren't reduced soon, that the economic growth of the country will suffer. This means that there will be substantial losses to infrastructure and property. The things that would be affected most would be agriculture, tourism, and fishing. The report also brought up that the U.S. will be 3 to 12 degrees hotter by the end of the century, depending on greenhouse gases. For more information on the assessment can be found at globalchange.gov.
We're going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to cover how to keep your pets safe during winter weather, as well as when did Valpo experience its last snowfall. Stick around.
In a world where entertainment is at risk, one man is given a mission, but he is about to face his biggest challenge yet. He will race against the clock and open doors to new possibilities that will save weekends as we know it.
What are you doing?
I'm looking for free movies.
Oh, I'll help you with that.
Just go to movies.valpo.edu. They have all the best movies, including The Hobbit, and 22 Jump Street.
Whoa, it's that easy?
It's that easy.
Grab some popcorn, grab some buddies, and watch movies.valpo.edu's great selection.
Well, I think that's all we need. Thank you so much for coming in. We'll be in touch.
Okay, this is it. Just shake his hand and walk out with your head held high. Don't mess this up.
Thank you. Nailed it.
Don't let a bad handshake get in the way of getting the job you want. Find out more at the Career Center.
Welcome back. With temperatures getting into the freezing range this evening and for quite some time, it's important that we keep our pets in mind. How do we keep them safe? Well, it's simple. Pets need the same amount of protection as humans do. According to Dr. Melissa Montgomery with the Tulsa Society for Prevention of Cruelty of Animals, she suggests the following: putting warm water into outdoor water bowls to make sure their water doesn't freeze, and to avoid using metal bowls that tend to stay cooler. Feed your animals heartily, so put out more food than usual, keeping animals indoors when it's freezing temperatures or in a garage if possible. Also, if animals have to be outside for longer periods of time, make sure their housing is dry and large enough to sit in and stand comfortably, yet small enough to contain their body heat. You should keep their paws clean. Once they come inside from being out, you need to wipe the salt, ice melt, or snow off their paws. It's important to know that pets still need to stay just as warm as we do during these winter months, and these simple steps will help.
Now we're going to take a look at one of the most notable snowstorms in the greater Chicago area in 1975, the snowstorm of Thanksgiving over 43 years ago. This storm began in rush hour Thanksgiving Eve and got progressively more intense that evening. The snowfall that Wednesday reached up to 7.5 inches. However, the snow continued into Thursday. When it finally stopped on Thursday, Midway Airport measured up to 8.6 inches of snow. The 8 inches that fell tied the record for a holiday's deepest cover since 1895. However, it's not uncommon for Chicago to experience more than a few inches of snow on Thanksgiving Day. In just 2004, the city got up to 4.3 inches of snow on Thanksgiving Eve, which disrupted travel for most people. Now, let's take a look at the other years that have seen snow during Turkey Day.
So there have been several days where we've seen several inches of snow in Chicago. And it's interesting because we're at the point of the month, or a part of the year rather, where it just depends on what kind of pattern you're in. You know, if you're in a cold spell, it's not uncommon to see snow. It just depends on where Thanksgiving falls on that.
Exactly, and with Thanksgiving being so variable, what day it falls on, it's kind of hard to see in advance if it's going to be a snow day or not.
Right.
But I think it is really interesting to see how many days of the year that Thanksgiving falls on that Chicago does receive snow, and over 57% of Thanksgiving does receive some kind of rainfall, which could be snow if temperatures are cold enough.
Right. And data in Valparaiso only goes back to 1998, so we don't have much there. But, there have been times, I'm sure, where lake effect has been here on Thanksgiving.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure of that.
And this is only including snow that's fallen on Thanksgiving. That's not to say there isn't already snow on the ground for Thanksgiving. So, there's certainly been some recent Thanksgivings where it's been white on the ground.
Yes, and even like the warmest Thanksgiving was only 69 degrees in just November 24th of 1966. And that could have very well been snow if it wasn't as warm.
Right. Well, and even this past Thanksgiving here, we had the storm just a few days after Thanksgiving. We'll have more on those snow totals in just a bit, but it shows that, it just depends on when Thanksgiving falls and if you're lucky.
Yes.
All right. So freezing temperatures are here to stay. So what things can you do to save money when heating your house? There are two simple tips. The first thing is to get insulating blinds for your windows in order to keep the heat inside the house instead of escaping right out through the windows. Secondly, you can invest in smart thermostats that have sensors for all around your home. This lets the thermostat know where you are in the house and where the heat would be needed most. You can always check with your power company. Many companies have rebates for smart thermostats.
And going off of how to keep your home warm is how to stay safe when temperatures drop. During the winter months, the CDC says carbon monoxide poisoning kills more than 400 people a year, colorless, odorless, and dangerous. This is one of the main results to faulty heating equipment. The one thing that could save your life is an operable carbon monoxide detector. In order to make sure the detector works, it's recommended that you test it once a week and check the date in which it was installed on the back. If it's over the 7 years or 10 years, then chances are it's too old to work properly. The most important thing is to have one on every level of your house. Even apartments, businesses, and schools need one. This is one simple step you can do to keep yourself and your home safe during the month when you use the furnace the most.
So important, Heather.
It is.
All right, so we're going to head to another break, but when we come back, we'll have more on the earthquake in Anchorage, Alaska, and more on the early start to this winter.
VUTV, your campus, your story. In a world where entertainment is at risk, one man is given a mission, but he is about to face his biggest challenge yet. He will race against the clock and open doors to new possibilities that will save weekends as we know it.
What are you doing?
I'm looking for free movies.
Oh, I'll help you with that.
Just go to movies.valpo.edu. They have all the best movies, including The Hobbit and 22 Jump Street.
Whoa, is that easy?
It's that easy.
Grab some popcorn, grab some buddies, and watch movies.valpo.edu's great selection.
Welcome back.
Yesterday sure was a terrifying day in Anchorage, Alaska, after a powerful earthquake struck near the city. There are no reports yet of deaths or serious injuries, but recovery from the quake is still early. There is, however, plenty of dramatic video from when the quake struck. CNN's Brian Todd shows us.
Violent shaking. Debris falls from the ceiling. Terrified people dive under desks.
It's okay. You're okay.
This video from a TV reporter inside a 6th-floor office of the Nesbitt Courthouse in downtown Anchorage shows the earthquake lasted several seconds. Inside this home, a horrified mother grabs her children. She heads toward the door, then hugs them. A passenger in this vehicle took this video of an off-ramp that collapsed, an SUV stuck in the middle of the damage. The earthquake, which measured 7.0, struck at about 8:30 a.m. local time and caused significant damage to homes, buildings, and other infrastructure across Anchorage. Widespread power outages are reported. In this security video, you can see what appear to be several transformers blowing up in the background. At Ted Stevens International Airport, planes were directed not to land. A ground stop was ordered. A control tower was temporarily evacuated. A brief tsunami warning was issued, then canceled, but a local seismologist says the shaking was felt up to 400 miles away. People who've lived in Alaska for decades and are used to this threat describe this as a severe event.
I have been here 37 years, and that was the most violent earthquake I have ever felt. It was absolutely terrifying.
At the most intense moments of the crisis, many Alaskans were hard-pressed to get information on it. TV and radio stations were knocked off the air.
There are TVs on the ground. You can see this right here, a TV on the ground. All of these are TVs and computers. This is a camera.
A government seismologist spoke of the frequency and intensity of earthquakes in Alaska, part of the so-called Rim of Fire in the Pacific region.
Earthquakes this close to Anchorage are obviously not very frequent, but it's a plate boundary. It's a massive subduction zone, and so big earthquakes are fairly common in this region. We saw a massive 9.2 earthquake in 1964.
Employees at one restaurant in Anchorage turned into instant first responders when the shaking started.
All my coworkers were yelling, get under the tables and be safe, but I'm still shaking. You can probably hear it in my voice. I'm just scared it's going to happen again.
A USGS forecast model predicts up to 1,000 aftershocks will have been felt over the next 24 hours.
Wow, that's scary stuff. Meanwhile, down the coast, parts of California look like a winter wonderland right now. Not everyone is happy about the early snowfall, but skiers sure are making the most of it. Lamore Abrams reports.
Strong winds and rain at Dutch Flat made for wet snow at Nyack. Then snowplows and chain controls along I-80.
Good to see it though, huh?
Good for business?
Good for business. Come on back.
It's Randy Freeman's favorite time of the year. He installs chains on all cars from sedans to big rigs, and there's no getting through without them, as Robert Radcliffe quickly learned.
Man, it was scary. I'm sliding everywhere. Gotta drive slow. People are getting mad at me.
But once you finally get up here, you will not regret it. They got a whole foot of this stuff just in the last 24 hours, and they're expecting to double up for the weekend.
I think we're ahead of where we were at this point last season, so we're going into a really good-looking season.
Boreal spokesman Tucker Norred says the ski resort was the first to open in all of California, with conditions some skiers have been waiting for all year long.
I love it. I'm just happy that there's this much snow this early in the season.
And Joel Butler drove over 4 hours from the Bay Area to get here, but he plans to stay for a few days to avoid the slick roads as long as possible.
You just gotta take it easy though. You gotta be careful out here.
California Highway Patrol reminds drivers to move slowly and keep a distance.
All right, coming up, we'll take a look at what's in store for Valpo over the next few weeks.
Stick with us.
What is passion? At Valpo, it's something that pours out of us uncontrollably. It's a late night shot of caffeine, cramming for finals, a jam session with friends. It sees deep into space, turns big stuff into small potatoes, floats boats, and floods the senses. Passion is alive, it has a heartbeat, and it lives in you. How do we know? Because at Valpo, passion is who we are.
Welcome back. While there is weather ravaging folks around the country, Valpo will still see its fair share of action. What's in store, Blake?
Yeah, Heather, first want to show you what the region saw in terms of snowfall from this last winter storm. Rockford was the winner in the Chicagoland region, picking up close to a foot of snow. DeKalb not far behind, 9.7 inches. Even O'Hare saw close to 8.5. Here in Valparaiso, we saw just over 3 inches. A lot of it compacted. It was such a heavy, wet snow. But notice the variability in our totals. Gary only saw 1/10 of an inch of snow. So certainly a dynamic system, and depending on where you were, depended on really how much snow you got. So we transitioned from the recent snowstorm to now potential for severe weather today. Now down near Peoria and Springfield, they have a slight risk of severe weather. We could still see a few rumbles of thunder here as well. And that's before we cool back down next week and see our snow chances return. So some rain has just pushed through. This is a very dynamic system. Lots of snow off to the northwest where they have a winter storm warning. Upwards of 2 feet of snow could fall in Sioux Falls, parts of Nebraska as well, where they're all going to be seeing snow. On the other hand, will be mostly rain through this weekend. But when it does eventually transition over to snow, won't happen till late Sunday night. We could pick up a few tenths of an inch, but based on the current situation with a lot of rain this weekend, it'll be hard for it to stick. Nonetheless, things could ice up come early next week. And that's important to keep a reminder for you on how to drive safe. We mentioned it earlier, but the biggest thing is tires. If you stick a quarter down, upside down into your tire tread, and you can see the top of George Washington's head, it is time to replace your tires. Otherwise, you should remove ice and snow from your vehicle. You may not want to, it might be a little work, but that can really fall behind your vehicle and hit others. I've been in that situation. I'm sure you have as well. It just helps everyone all around if you remove all of that. Also with skidding, the main idea here is to just take it slow. Drive slower than you think you need to, and you should be just fine. Looking at your 7-day forecast, that may come in handy here next Friday. In the meantime, lots of snow, some warmer temperatures. We begin to cool back down, and then we finally transition into what should be a pretty permanent winter pattern with snow chances coming back. First Sunday night, perhaps a few tenths, and then we'll have some lake effect chances throughout the week. So it's always important to keep those winter driving tips in handy because we're going to be needing it here for the next few months.
Yeah, we are, especially with everybody going back home for winter break.
Yeah, but it's still too early to say what those winter driving plans will be for folks heading home for break.
I know, with everybody heading home. What are your winter break plans?
Not much. Going back home to Michigan. Last winter, we saw lots of snow while I was home, so we'll see if that stays true again. But not a lot. Just enjoying Christmas with family, you know, getting a much-needed break. It's been a pretty wild semester. How about you?
It really has. I will be flying back home to Idaho and spending time with my family, and I even bought my ski tickets.
There you go.
So I'm more than ready to go
You're
enjoy
going to be right
the
along
snow.
with those Californians we showed earlier, excited to be skiing on.
I really am. We had our opening day early November, and
Wow.
and I was pretty excited because there's still quite a bit of snow on the
Yeah.
mountain.
Well, hopefully that stays true through the month of December.
I hope so.
Well, as the semester comes to a close, we would like to thank each and every one of you for tuning in this season.
Hopefully you've learned more about weather both here in the country and right here at home.
And as we close the show, we'd like to take a moment to honor the legacy of George H.W. Bush, our 41st president and World War II hero, who passed away at the age of 94.
We hope you have a Merry Christmas, and we'll see you back here in January.